All right, guys, we're going to get going. So first of all, I want to thank everybody. Today's session, we're going to try to make it kind of fun. We've got about 25 minutes, and we're going to cover what I think is probably the most important technical problem and opportunity at Salesforce.com, integration. Too many people see integration in Salesforce as something that you have to do. If I had $1 for every time that a system integrator came out and said, oh, you want to implement Salesforce.com? Well, when you go to integration, you want to do that in phase 2 or phase 3, I'd be a millionaire. The bottom line is that integration in Salesforce is going to now move from something that you had to do only at the last minute to something that you do to gain strategic advantage. And we're going to share with you some of the cool things that are coming out from Salesforce around integration. We're Jitterbit, a Salesforce-invested company. We've worked together with Salesforce over the last 5 years to build out the most modern cloud integration solution. We'll talk about some of our joint solutions, and then most important, we're going to get right into a live demo and show you a really cool demo of integrating not just systems, but integrating to the IoT. So with that quick introduction, my name is Andrew Lee. I am actually vice president over at Jitterbit, been there for 4 years. Probably more important, I was at Salesforce for 7 years before that, and I ran the integration strategy for 7 years. That was really the decision of, at Salesforce, what are we going to do around integration? We have a well-architected API, but are we going to build integration ourselves? Are we going to partner for integration? Or are we going to actually, do something else? And those are the decisions we made. So let's go ahead and dive into it. We're going to talk specifically about the 5 things that are going to change in 2017 here in Salesforce around integration. The first one is people are going to start to realize, and you can see it in Mark's deck yesterday in that keynote, as all of these acquisitions start to pile up, both inside Salesforce, but also as all the services start to explode around service, we're going to start to realize that how you connect these applications, these technologies, these microservices, that is what's going to determine a customer's success going forward. You guys should know these numbers. 50 billion things are going to be connected in the next 3 years. People are going to spend 6 times more on cloud services than they are on on-premise going forward. This whole AI, deep learning, neural network, next-generational analytic wave that we're just in the middle of, this is going to fundamentally transform the digital stack. It'll represent a $125 billion opportunity. But here's what's most important for those people who have been around Salesforce. 57% of the IT budget will remain on the on-premise systems because we still hold over 80% of our data back behind the firewall. And sure enough, Ray Wang, Constellation Research agrees. Those companies that survive in the next 3 to 5 years through digital transformation will be the companies that put connectivity first before anything else on the IT agenda. Okay, now what are your options to go out there and do integration? I spent a lot of time in the dev zone. I remember when the first dev zone came out with Apex code and we had ADN across our shirts. And it was a great time. Spent a lot of time around the Salesforce API when it was only the SOAP API, before the REST API, the streaming API. And get ready, there are a few more APIs coming out. The bottom line is everybody wants to code API integrations at Salesforce. And what I would tell you is, yes, it's always a balance between speed and functionality, but when it comes to integrating, going forward, custom code is not the way to go. Now, the next thing that we see are native connectors. And I'll tell you, doing integration for the last 15 years, and specifically the last 10 years in the Salesforce ecosystem, there's a place for native connectors. If somebody like ExactTarget, now the Marketing Cloud, somebody like Marketo, right, has a native connector, and they're on the App Exchange, that's a great way to go. It's a purpose-built integration. It should be enterprise class for that specific use case. But that's not an enterprise strategy. So there's a place for native connectors, but I would tell you, if you're trying to connect something like Workday to Salesforce and you hear something about a native connector, as developers, as the technical teams, dive in to understand the scalability, the configurability, the customization around that. Understand whose best practices actually built that connector and how you can expand it going forward. Now, the next one, and I see this one all the time, is traditional on-premise middleware, the old ESB and ETL. This can be the old Vitria, the old web methods. This would be the people who are using, open source Mule. big old Informatica power center. These things have been out there for the last 10 to 15 years, and they have tremendous power and tremendous complexity. They have a huge cost. They're focused in towards a development team. Generally, 3 to 5 guys take about 6 months to build an integration. Our message around these is not to rip them all out, but build, again, a layer of agility around them. Gartner calls it bimodal IT. Realize that there's a place for the old school, but at the same time, build an agility layer, an option to be able to make quick and fast cloud integrations. And make sure that that option can connect to the ESB using something like JMS so that you can augment your ETL or ASB study, or you can go with a lighter weight, faster approach if you choose. Ultimately, the best of all worlds, we believe, is a cloud integration platform. And sure enough, Gartner says the exact same thing this last fall when they came out with the iPaaS integration platform as a service. They're very clear. Cloud integration, just as cloud CRM, cloud ERP, cloud supply chain, cloud HR, will overtake on-premise integration in the next 3 years. Now, what do you want to look for in a cloud integration solution? You need all the components, first of all, to be part of a single multi-tenant cloud platform, just as you're looking for that within Salesforce.com. Then you want open connectivity. It's not about the connectors, it's about the connectivity. You want SOAP, REST, ODBC, JDBC. Ideally, you've got EDI. You've got all of the integration standards built right into that platform so that you can connect to any of the APIs that are out there. Most important in a modern cloud integration solution is you want the tightest possible integration. Ultimately, it should be built on the exact same code line of API management. Don't settle for something where somebody bought an API gateway, right? So Apogee just got bought by Google. Does that mean that Google and Apogee works together? No. You want it to be part of the same design experience, part of the same management experience, so that any integration that you build, whether it's to Salesforce, SAP, .NET, whatever, every single integration can be automatically exposed as a public or private API with just a matter of clicks. You should not have to code API gateways to fuel them with all the enterprise data that's out there. That's the reason that Mashery got bought. That's the reason that Apogee got bought, is they provided these big API gateways, but they didn't connect to anything. And a gateway is only as good as the data that you connect it to. So if you can't connect the data very easily to SAP, Oracle, database, Salesforce, it's not good use. So look for that seamless integration. Make sure that you can do all 3 integration design patterns that are out there. Process or application integration, data management and data integration, and again, API gateways. And not only can you do them, but they should all be able to be orchestrated into a common digital process. Look for pre-built templates and solutions. Look for people who have done it before. Integration is not just about technically connecting to an API. It's having the domain expertise between the systems to understand an SAP API is actually a BAPI, an IDOC, an RFC, and OData. Be careful of something like a Salesforce Connect. It's an amazing technology. It is not a middleware by any means. It is an ability for a new external object at Salesforce to be able to point directly to an OData API gateway, consume that data, show that data in real time within Salesforce itself, and not have to store it within Salesforce. What it is not is the ability to go through your firewall, connect directly to SAP, grab that data, massage the data, and then bring it forward securely in a performant way and make it available within Salesforce. So you need to use those technologies together with a true integration middleware in order to be successful. And please don't try to code that integration through firewalls directly back to, say, NetWeaver on your own. And then finally, a runtime agents. Third, I think you guys all get it. This is a group that's pretty educated. Analytics and IoT are finally the 2 last components of a modern digital architecture. A modern digital architecture means that you need to be able to connect on-premise to cloud. We always used to try to hook up our on-premise ERP to Salesforce.com. That was the big one. But you now have to think about strategies around this new generation of analytics, and you have to be able to have a strategy for how you're going to attach to the IoT going forward. And that will enable you, through that connectivity, to transform each and every department from sales to operations to service to marketing. And by the way, remember, as you break it down, what is the data? What is the information that you're going to get from each of those 4 quadrants? Think about the IoT. I may be getting information from vehicles. I might be getting information from assets, like an MRI machine at the hospital. I'm getting information from the devices, like Fitbits. I might be getting analytical information around your priorities, your forecasts. Salesforce might represent only your cases, your opportunities, and your leads. And some of the most valuable data that you have to get to sales and service people is ultimately the inventory, product, and pricing data that lives in your ERP or general ledger. 4, the process is more important than the connectivity. The process is more important than the connectivity. I know we're in the dev zone, and I know everybody loves the standards, and it is important to be able to connect. But more important than connecting and actually integrating is knowing why you're integrating. So before you start your integration project, ask yourself, what's the business value of this integration? And by the way, it could be as simple as, I want to allow salespeople to be able to actually take an order in their sales application. And that means that I need to capture the quote in Salesforce, and I need to be able to pass all of that data and variables to the order management module that lives in my Oracle Fusion ERP application. It can be that simple. But if you understand that process and why you're doing the integration, it'll control the scope, and it will differentiate. And this is how you use integration as a strategy, not a tactic. By the way, this process orchestration is Mophie, if you guys know the battery packs on the back. These guys, of course, they did quote to cash, but this is actually their return material authorization process across a half a dozen systems, as they allow you to basically return anything that got shipped to you, return it to them, and then they send you a replacement part or a refund. That entire digital process is all connected and orchestrated through Jitterbit. And 5, last, before we get right into a live demo and show you exactly how this stuff works, look for distributed agent architecture. The emergence of distributed agent architectures will fundamentally change the way that we do integration today. In the days of client server, we had a big power center server that we would have to install on its own dedicated piece of hardware. If somebody tells you that in order to use their solution, you have to take a big ESP bus and you got to stick it back into your IT department behind the firewall, and 2 or 3 people have to maintain it, turn around and run, because that's the SAP approach to integration. A distributed agent architecture allows for hybrid integration. It gives you the ability to run the integrations where you choose. If you're connecting 2 cloud services, say Salesforce to Amazon, you should be able to run the integrations 100% in the cloud. You should never have to download or install or upload or manage any kind of software. But if you're integrating something that lives back behind the firewall, you should have the ability to drop something very lightweight. And the key is lightweight. Look for like 100 megs or less. Back behind the firewall, ideally, and this is where it gets hard, drop a couple of those little agents, we call them smart agents, back behind the firewall, and they should intelligently cluster with each other to control workflow and high availability. They'll connect to the on-premise system, and that's what provides the secure and performant integration through your actual firewall. So look to the way that they do their distributed agent architecture. It allows you to have a distributed runtime in an intelligent way, but you still have centralized management and control. This is the hardest thing to do in our world. All right, couple basic stats on Jitterbit at this point in time. Today alone, we will connect 141,000 applications and services. We're executing, and 60% of this, by the way, is Salesforce.com ecosystem. 1.5 million integration jobs every single day. Most important question when it comes down to integration, we used to talk about 6 months being short, 12 months being average, you should be able to integrate business applications like Salesforce to NetSuite, Salesforce to a database. Salesforce to a database, frankly, should take days. Salesforce to something like NetSuite, you should be able to get that done in less than 30 days. If somebody quotes to you an integration project and it takes more than 90 days, turn around and run because there's something wrong. We're moved away from the idea of waterfall integration to agile integration. And more importantly now, you should be thinking about how do I build not my first integration, but my second, third, and fourth integration. Salesforce uses our product today. They've built over 250 integrations in the last 3 years. Today, they build a new integration every 5 days. So with that, let me introduce Corey Willis, who's going to come up here and give us a live demo. And Corey, I think you're giving us an IoT integration demo.
We are. We're going to be taking a look at something with particularly health devices. How many of you have a Fitbit or something similar? Okay, so some of you out there. Now, imagine a scenario where maybe you are working with a healthcare provider, maybe your healthcare provider, and in this scenario, you're going through something, they need to track your fitness. They need to know what your activity is. Okay, because let's be honest, this new world of integration and where we're going, it's not just about things like Salesforce and your CRM and a back-end ERP system, but it's getting down to the devices, the Fitbits, the sensors that are out there for manufacturing and inventory, vehicles. The list just goes on and on and on what is out there that can be connected today. But again, how do we do this? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. So let me switch over here, jump out of the slides and show you something that hopefully is going to be a little more interesting to you. Right here, what we're seeing is the Jitterbit Studio. Now, Andrew was talking about this, but everything in Jitterbit, everything from basic data integration and moving that data from point A to point B, all the way to the business process integration, and all the way then into full API management is in one design experience. Now, this is an installable application for Mac or PC, but it's just a designer. Okay, once something is designed here, it's deployed out to one of your environments in the cloud. We do support multiple environments, and then you get to choose. Remember the distributed agent architecture that Andrew was talking about. You get to choose, where do these integrations run? Now, if you're running cloud-to-cloud integration, you're connecting to Fitbits and Salesforce and all this, why do you have to have something back behind the firewall? There's no need. We have cloud agents, secure cloud agents, multi-tenant cloud that you can use to run your integrations 100% in the cloud. You design it here, deploy it out, it runs forever. But when you do come across those scenarios where you've got a hybrid integration, you say, you know what, I've got a bunch of data sitting in the cloud, but I've still got data sitting behind the firewall. In that case, we have the secure local agent. You drop back there, and you've got that connectivity. But again, what we've got here is simply the designer. So what's it take to design something, and what could this look like? Well, we built a little something that I think you might enjoy seeing. Over here, we have a Salesforce instance. Now you see our account, Jitterbit, and we've got some contacts. Now we've got to kind of think through the story a little bit, because remember back to the medical scenario. Your medical provider needs to track your activity for whatever reason. So how do we get this in here? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but we've got something fairly simple, which is a nice little web form. It can be as simple as this. Yes, web forms can call into Jitterbit, because Jitterbit can not only connect to other systems that have REST and SOAP APIs and back-end databases and file connectivity with CSV and XML, JSON, EDI, things like this, but we can also host APIs on that live API platform. So, for instance here, we could come through and say, okay, let's create ourselves a new contact. And so we'll call this Jim Smith here, and we'll just put in a basic email address. So there we go. Okay, so company, this is going to be one of our new Jitterbitters, and what we've got actually in the contacts there, several of our actual employees are wearing Fitbits this week, and we're tracking their data. But we're going to put in some information here, and we're going to submit this. Now, we're working with another partner here called Validic. Okay, if you go over to the expo hall back in the back, there's also a little health area over there. They're using it over there as well, and we powered the integration. But what's happening here is that little web form is hitting Jitterbit, and you see that URL there. Now, what Jitterbit's doing on the back end during this is that we're taking that information, we're doing a couple things. From that web form, we're taking that information, we're going and creating the contact record over inside of Salesforce. Once the contact record is created, we need to get this over to this other API, the Validic API. Well, that needs some very specific data because with it being health, you've got to mask stuff and you can't actually have real patient data and all this type of stuff. So there's some requirements there. We're taking care of that with Jitterbit. And essentially here, what we've done is on the back end, without you really seeing it, I'll show you the process in a moment. But what we're doing is we're creating that a really anonymous patient record in the Validic system. It's creating a unique identifier that we know because we've got the patient data, they don't know it, and we've just got this record. And what we could do is scroll down through here because Validic is an API aggregator. Okay, they maintain basically integrations out to each one of these. Now we could do that with Jitterbit as well, but it's always nice to use a partner that works very closely. But we could scroll down and say, hey, there's our Fitbit. Let's connect it, and it's going to take us through the Fitbit single sign-on. Now, I don't have an actual Fitbit account for Jim Smith because we just made him up, but let's step over here into Salesforce. Now, you notice the contacts here. Let's open this up, and right there, notice there's our Jim Smith. And we could click into Jim Smith because let's say that Jim did that little registration and then he closed out of his browser because he forgot his Fitbit credentials, and he calls up the medical provider and says, hey, what do I do now? Well, it's real simple. You pull up the contact record, and you come over here to details. Let's say he's sitting at the front desk in the office. There we go. We'll scroll down, and what we've got is a nice little link right here in the patient record for Validic, and it's managed. And if we click that, it's going to take us right back, all integrated through Jitterbit. Now, what does this actually do? Well, let's go over to my personal record here. So I'm going to go to Contacts, and there's mine, Corey Willis, and I'm going to go to my details. And once I'm here, I'm going to come down, and what we're going to see here is some basic information that connects us over to Validic. We saw that on Jim Smith's record. But I could also come to Related and come down here, and here you see my fitness records. So I've been wearing my Fitbit here while at Dreamforce, not much before that, you see. But there you get to see the steps that I've hit every day while I'm here. Okay, so yesterday it was over 15,000 steps. I'm not used to that, but maybe you guys are. But you know, we get to pull all this data in. Well, how's it happening? Back to the Jitterbit Studio. Right in here, I want to show you a couple processes, and you're going to get to see what this looks like inside of Jitterbit. First, when we did that registration for Jim Smith, right here's the process, all graphical in nature. We're not having to drop into code. Now, I'll tell you, we're in the dev zone. I know a lot of you guys could drop into code. You could do this all day long. I'm not a developer, but guess what? I can do this all day long. So that means you're going to do it 10 times faster than I can. It's that easy, okay? We're starting here with step one, where we're getting that real-time call in from the API, from the web form. We're going into Salesforce, creating that volunteer record. In step two, that's where we're provisioning to the Validic APIs. Now, it doesn't have to be Validic. It could be back to manufacturing and talking about NetSuite or SAP or any of these other systems out there. Again, REST or SOAP API, backend database, XML, JSON, text, it doesn't matter, plus connectors for things like SAP, Salesforce, NetSuite, Oracle EBS. Again, the list just goes on and on. But in step three, that's where we put all that Validic data back in. Now, we've got running on a schedule this right here, which is what goes out and pulls those records from Validic, where they're aggregating all of this data together. Okay, and you see the process. We are grabbing those fitness records. We see it right here, get fitness. We're then mapping that data, graphical mapping engine. We call it the transformation. Okay, so all of that taken care of right here in the Jitterbit tool in the studio. As we go on down, we're doing other things like updating a last runtime, just some different steps. We can also take this to another level, and this is the last little bit that I'm going to bring up, and then we're going to have some time for some Q&A. But we can also do things with systems like Wave, Salesforce Analytics. So for instance, here, we've got those records already sitting inside of Salesforce But let's be honest, sometimes even Salesforce to Wave can get a little challenging because you have to work with the data a little bit as you're moving it. Okay, or maybe you need to pull some data out of Salesforce and then grab some data from 2 or 3 other systems, aggregate all that together. It's a great use case for something like Jitterbit. Well, this is out there and it's running and it's pulling those records in and it's massaging those and manipulating them to what we want for Wave Analytics. So we can step back over. There we go, that's finished. Let's come over here and now open up our Wave Analytics app inside. Oh, so my browser is blocking it. Oh, that's always great. But I'll tell you what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to switch over to Classic because I know I can get to it from there. So here we go. There we go. Over to Wave. And over here, what we can do is descend then into the Dreamforce app that I created and into the fitness data. And there you see the ones that we're tracking. Okay, so you see mine, okay, so I'm not doing the greatest. There's others that are doing a little bit better than me, but hey, I'm getting more steps in than what I do at home. So that's good for my fitness. But it gives you that ability that you can go in and drill into that data. So again, coming back as a recap, as Andrew's coming up here too for any Q&A that we've got, I'll tell you guys, if it's data integration, if it is business process integration, if it's real-time APIs, remember, using and really leveraging this type of technology, it sets you up for that strategic advantage. And remember back to those 5 points that Andrew made. So Andrew, I'll let you take over here and MC from this point for any questions we've got in the last couple minutes.
All right, and I'll tell you what, guys, this is a big and noisy room, so we're going to ask for quick questions. If we can hear it, we'll definitely answer. But what I can tell you is our booth is right over there. Anytime that you want to go down with some of the technical architects, talk specifically about any of your integration questions, please come to the booth. We're the kind of company that want to show you demos. By the way, we also like to do POCs, so if you've got systems that you got to connect and you engage with us, we don't mind. Give us access to the system. Let's see if we can move the data, get them connected, and work very quickly. But let me see, any questions about integration with Salesforce? Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, got 2 Salesforce instances, you create an opportunity in one, you want to branch that out into 2 opportunities in another with a parent-child relationship. How does JitterBed handle that?
You want to take it? You want me to grab it?
I'll take it. So, I mean, ultimately, we're just connecting to Salesforce through the APIs. All of the logic is done inside of JitterBit. So that's very simple to do. We can branch out into hierarchies. We can take care of parent-child relationships, even across orgs using things like external IDs. Every bit of that can be done. We'd love to actually just jump into the product. Again, booth's right here, and we can kind of show you what those mechanics would look like, but not a challenge at all.
Yep. I would simply add to you, it's something that we did not mention today, but you bring up a great example. Integrating Salesforce to Salesforce is actually one of the most common integrations that we see out there today. Salesforce.com themselves integrating over 50 different Salesforce orgs using Jitterbit. So very common use case. All right, guys, we're going to cut Q&A because it is a little tricky. We're going to be down here to chat with you. The booth is right there. I want to thank you guys very much for your time today. Have a fantastic day 3 of Dreamforce, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.